The courtroom fell silent as the judge re-entered. Tension cut the air like a blade. After weeks of testimony, dozens of witnesses, and a media frenzy unlike anything since the Depp Heard circus, we finally had a verdict, or at least part of one. Sean Diddy Combs, the once untouchable music mogul, now faced a brutal reality. The jury had returned with decisions on 4 out of 5 counts. And make no mistake, what they handed down shook the foundations of hip-hop royalty. Diddy, for all his millions, his attorneys, his bravado, was no longer insulated. The verdict was in, and it wasn't looking good. This wasn't just about legalese or obscure statutes. This was a moral reckoning, a cultural earthquake, and the public, they weren't just watching, they were reacting loudly. Today we break it all down: what exactly the jury decided, where Diddy's legal team stands now, what this means for the future of celebrity accountability, and why, despite the partial nature of this verdict, many are saying Diddy is done. Imagine the tension. The jury had been out for 12 hours. Inside the courtroom, you could hear the shuffle of reporters' pens, the clicking of nervous heels. Diddy sat stoically between his attorney's jaw, clenched, sunglasses off for once, a rare moment of vulnerability for the man who built an empire off of bravado and invincibility. The judge, grave and measured, announced the jury had reached a verdict on 4 of the 5 counts. Count 1 guilty, count 2 guilty, count 3 guilty, count 4 guilty, count 5 deadlocked. The room gasped. Diddy stared forward, unmoved, but his attorney flinched. For those who followed this saga from the beginning, allegations of trafficking, coercion, manipulation, the gravity of 4 guilty verdicts was not just symbolic. It was historic. Let's break this down from a legal lens. Count 1 and 2, federal sex trafficking charges. These are not small-time allegations. They carry decades of potential prison time. The jury found that Diddy knowingly participated in the transportation and exploitation of individuals across state lines for illegal purposes. That alone can land him a minimum of 15 years depending on sentencing. Count 3 and 4 related to the use of facilities in interstate commerce for criminal activity. Think booking hotels, flights, events, and using his entertainment company infrastructure to facilitate the crimes. That cements the government's argument that this wasn't just personal misconduct. It was a business model. Count 5, the racketeering charge. This is where the jury hit a wall. RICO charges are notoriously complex. It requires showing a pattern of activity across multiple associates and over time. Even though prosecutors laid out a network of enablers, assistants, and bodyguards, the jury couldn't reach unanimity. But here's the kicker: they didn't have to. For convictions are more than enough to sink Diddy. The racketeering charge was a cherry on top, one that may still come later in a retrial. Immediately after the verdict, Diddy's lead attorney, Brian Patterson, requested a sidebar with the judge. Sources close to the defense say their entire closing argument hinged on discrediting witness credibility, but that gamble clearly failed. The jury believed them, particularly the emotional testimony of Jane Doe No. 3, who cried through cross-examination while recounting her coercion by Diddy and his security team. Diddy didn't speak, but insiders claim he whispered, "This is bulls ***** to his lawyer as the verdicts were read. Behind closed doors there was chaos, phones buzzing, PR advisors in meltdown mode. Rumors are swirling that at least one high-level member of his legal team is considering stepping down before sentencing. Why the case has become radioactive, and with the Department of Justice hinting at further charges, this may only be the beginning. Social media exploded the second the verdict dropped. #Diddy Guilty trended within minutes. CNN called it a landmark reckoning for music industry predators. Rolling Stone simply posted, "He's not dancing anymore." Twitter X was merciless. One user wrote, "You can run bad boy records, but you can't run from karma." Celebrities began distancing themselves fast. French Montana deleted old photos. DJ Khaled issued a vague statement about being on the side of truth. Even some of Diddy's past collaborators remained silent, eerily so. But it wasn't just fans and celebs reacting. Lawyers, former prosecutors, and advocates for sexual assault survivors took to the airwaves. Here's what civil rights attorney Lisa Carmichael told MSNBC: "This is not about cancel culture. This is about accountability. Diddy was protected by power, money, and silence for decades. That wall has finally cracked." Outside the courthouse, a few of the accusers stood silently holding hands. No press conference, no victory speech, just tears. Later, a lawyer representing 3 Jane Does issued this statement: "Today, justice whispered. It hasn't shouted yet, but it's a start. My clients are deeply moved by the jury's belief in their truth. We will now fight for the harshest possible sentence." This may seem like closure, but for many survivors, this is just one moment in a lifetime of healing. Several women who didn't testify are now considering civil suits. Sources say more. Then 5 new civil filings are being drafted right now. Diddy may be facing a second storm before the first is even over, so what's next sentencing? The judge has set a date for 60 days from the verdict. Prosecutors have already signaled they will push for maximum sentencing on all counts, especially in light of the high-profile nature of the case and the emotional toll on victims. But there's more. The DOJ has hinted at additional federal charges pending. There's even chatter of a money laundering indictment, based on how Diddy allegedly funneled payments to keep witnesses quiet. And don't forget, the state of California is still investigating alleged activity that occurred in Los Angeles. Civilly, Diddy is now vulnerable to a wave of lawsuits. Some legal experts predict this could result in tens of millions in damages. His assets may soon be frozen, his companies currently in crisis mode could collapse. And then there's his reputation. Whatever's left of it, let's bring it down to brass tacks. I'm not just an entertainment reporter, I've sat in courtrooms like this, and here's my take. Diddy is facing the fight of his life. And the prosecutors brought receipts, they built a timeline, they brought in corroborating witnesses. They exposed his empire as a potential front for exploitation. Defense lawyers banked on celebrity immunity. They thought the jury would see glitz, glamour, and reasonable doubt. But instead they saw manipulation, coercion, and decades of silence. The deadlock on racketeering, a hiccup. The government may retry that, but even if they don't, the 4 convictions carry weight. Diddy will almost certainly serve prison time. And the walls are closing in. This is not a PR crisis, this is a collapse. Diddy once said can't stop, won't stop, but the justice system finally did. This isn't just a legal case, it's a cultural turning point. We are living in a time where fame no longer guarantees immunity. And the fact that a jury in 2025 held someone like Diddy accountable for these crimes sends a loud, clear message: power no longer protects predators. Will others fall next? Will the enablers face justice? Will this open the floodgates to other high-profile takedowns? Only time will tell. But for now, in that courtroom, justice didn't just knock. It kicked the door in, and for Sean Diddy Combs, it's only the beginning. We've now learned through court insiders that the jury was deadlocked on the racketeering charge after intense deliberation. One juror reportedly told the court liaison, "We believed something bad happened. We just couldn't all agree it fit our RICO's legal definition." That's the key here. RICO isn't just about crimes, it's about conspiracies. It requires showing a coordinated, structured organization whose goal was criminal activity over time. And while prosecutors outlined what they believed was an enterprise complete with assistants, fixers, and event staff, it only takes one juror to resist the pattern argument for it to fall apart. But that doesn't let Diddy off the hook. In fact, it may help the government. Prosecutors could now decide to retry the racketeering charge with even more evidence. Now that they've seen what worked and what didn't, the jury believed the survivors. They believed Diddy exploited his power, but RICO is technical, it's surgical. And the government might just sharpen their blade for round 2. While the courtroom was shaking, Diddy's corporate world was crumbling. Within hours of the verdict, several companies announced suspensions of partnerships with Combs Enterprises. Diageo, the beverage company behind Croc and Dell and Tequila, formally ended all remaining business ties. Revolt TV, his media empire, scrubbed his presence from their website. And then came the real blow. Combs Capital, his private equity initiative, was dropped by 2 of its largest backers. One hedge fund insider told Variety anonymously it's radioactive now. No investor wants to be caught supporting someone convicted on sex trafficking. He went from business mogul to brand liability overnight. The PR fallout was relentless. Crisis management insiders say his team is fractured, burned out, and fighting internally. One senior advisor reportedly urged him to issue a public apology. Another told him to prepare a redemptive documentary. A third simply quit. It's not just that Diddy is in legal trouble. He's uninsurable, untouchable, and possibly unrecoverable. Let's be real, this isn't just a legal story, this is about culture. Diddy helped build the blueprint of modern hip-hop entrepreneurship. He gave us Bad Boy, Biggie, MTV moments, fashion lines, award shows, and unforgettable ad-libs. For millions, he was the symbol of black excellence, of beating the odds. But now that image is fractured. Some artists have gone silent, worried about association, others are conflicted. Behind the scenes, several top rappers reportedly canceled plans to appear on upcoming Combs-related projects, but some are speaking out. In a surprise move, former Bad Boy rapper Mark Curry took to Instagram. "Live, I've been waiting for this day. I saw too much. Diddy hurt people, and the industry protected him." Other artists echoed that sentiment privately but fear retaliation. As one insider put it, there's a loyalty tax in hip-hop. If you speak out, you pay. And yet the silence from some corners has been deafening. Does hip-hop really want to confront what it enabled, or is this just another fire to sweep under the rug back in Hollywood? The reaction is split. Some, like Kerry Washington and Gabrielle Union, have quietly expressed support for survivors, liking and sharing related posts. Others, like Jay-Z and Beyonce, close to Diddy for decades, have remained conspicuously silent. Insiders say there's pressure mounting for top stars to denounce Diddy. One publicist told us every A-lister with a tie to him is getting calls. Sponsors, charities, studios, they're all asking the same question. Where do you stand? Even Ryan Murphy, who previously hinted at a possible biopic on Diddy's life, is rumored to have dropped the project entirely. Studios don't want to touch his story, not with a 1,000-foot pole. The only person close to Diddy who has spoken publicly is singer Cassie Ventura, who settled her own civil case with him last year. She released a cryptic Instagram story. Hours after the verdict, healing is real, accountability is necessary. Let's talk about the unthinkable Diddy in prison. It's not just about bars and jumpsuits. For a man who lived on private jets, yacht parties, and million-dollar studio sessions, the transition will be brutal. According to former federal prosecutor Glenn Marks, if sentenced, Diddy will likely serve time in a federal medium security facility. There's no VIP unit. He won't be spared. This isn't house arrest. That includes strip searches, mandatory work assignments, 6:0 a.m. wake-ups, no cell phones, limited visitation rights. In other words, everything Diddy built his identity around will vanish. And let's not forget, other inmates will know who he is. Being a celebrity in federal prison is dangerous. Jealousy, violence, targeting, it happens. Even solitary confinement is possible if he's deemed a high-profile risk. So if you're picturing a posh sentence, think again. This isn't white-collar time. This is federal punishment. The ripple effect from Diddy's conviction has already started. Prosecutors hinted at unnamed co-conspirators during the trial. Now attention is turning toward his inner circle, longtime assistants, managers, bodyguards, and artists. Who knew? Who helped facilitate the cover-up? Sources say subpoenas are being prepped for former bodyguard Roger J., longtime executive Harve Pierre, and even a former Bad Boy artist. A federal investigation is underway into whether other individuals assisted in coercing or intimidating witnesses. One insider told Rolling Stone, if the feds flip just one person, this becomes a RICO case again. Bigger, wider, more explosive. This has the potential to become another #MeTooWave, but inside hip-hop. This isn't just about Diddy, it's about the system that let him thrive for 30 years while women suffered in silence. Why didn't the music industry act sooner? Why did executives, journalists, collaborators turn a blind eye? Was it fear, profit, both? The answer is uncomfortable. Powerful men in entertainment are still protected until they're not, and in 2025 something shifted. A jury said enough. They believed the victims, they rejected celebrity privilege. They demanded justice, and this shift is global. Similar cases are bubbling in London, Paris, even Lagos. Lawyers say international law enforcement is watching this verdict closely. It may embolden others to come forward. No matter how powerful the accused, this is Diddy's legacy now. Federal sentencing guidelines suggest Diddy could face 20 to 40 years behind bars, depending on whether counts run concurrently or consecutively. Factors that could influence sentencing: aggravating circumstances, use of power, number of victims, manipulation, lack of remorse. Diddy has shown no public contrition, obstruction, reports of threats, and intimidation of witnesses prior. Settlements, though civil, they could be referenced to show pattern. A sentencing memo from the government is expected in the coming weeks. Experts predict prosecutors will call for the harshest sentence allowable. Meanwhile, Diddy's team may beg for leniency, claiming charitable work, family obligations, and age. But based on what we've seen, the judge may have zero patience for celebrity excuses. Sean Diddy Combs was once the king of cool, a master of reinvention, a mogul who danced across stages, sold champagne dreams, and convinced millions he was untouchable. That era is over. The man who famously said, "I thought I told you that we won't stop," has been stopped by a jury of everyday people. It's poetic, tragic, necessary. The music will keep playing, but the silence around predators in power, that's breaking. And as one victim's attorney said on the courthouse steps, he built a legacy on hits, but history will remember him for the harm. The curtain has fallen. The stage that once celebrated Sean Diddy Combs, a man hailed as a visionary, a mogul, a mastermind, is now the scene of a catastrophic collapse. What once was glitz, power, and prestige has dissolved into scandal, shame, and a legacy tainted by pain. The partial verdict in this historic federal case doesn't just spell trouble for Diddy's future. It shatters the carefully constructed illusion of invincibility that surrounded him for decades. 4 out of 5 counts, including to sex trafficking convictions, are more than enough to alter the trajectory of his life forever. The weight of those convictions cannot be overstated. These are not minor infractions or regulatory fines. These are crimes of human harm, of abuse, of decades-long exploitation. These are crimes that speak to a pattern not of artistry but of manipulation and power wielded in the shadows. What we're witnessing is not merely a celebrity scandal. It's a cultural purge. This trial and the guilty verdicts it yielded have cracked the armor surrounding not just Diddy but the system that allowed him to thrive without accountability for so long. A system of enablers, corporate backers, silent witnesses, and frightened victims, all entangled in a web of celebrity worship and capital protection. That system for once has been challenged, not fully dismantled but undeniably shaken. As the judge prepares for sentencing, the reality becomes ever more sobering. Diddy may soon trade designer suits for a prison uniform. He may go from hosting yacht parties to facing prison lockdowns. The lavish lifestyle, jets, mansions, award shows, entourages, all of it stripped away. And while some may still cling to the idea of a comeback to the fantasy of redemption tours or terror-filled interviews, the damage here runs too deep, to raw, and to public. But beyond the legal penalties and the media fallout lies something more important: the voices that were finally heard. This trial didn't just indict a man, it gave voice to women who had been silenced, women who were threatened, bought off, or ignored for years, women whose lives were altered forever by a man whose power seemed eternal. They stood up. They told their stories, and a jury believed them. That matters. It matters in an industry where survivors are often discredited before they even speak. It matters in a world where fame is often mistaken for virtue. And it matters because it sends a message not just to Diddy, but to every powerful figure who thinks they're too rich to famous, to protected to face justice. For too long, Diddy's story was one of reinvention. He went from backup dancer to producer, from artist to label boss, from mogul to media king. But now the reinvention is involuntary. He is no longer just an icon of hip-hop, he is a cautionary tale. A symbol of how far the mighty can fall when the truth finally catches up. His team, once filled with top-tier attorneys and PR handlers, now grapples with impossible questions. How do you rebuild a brand that's become synonymous with trafficking and coercion? How do you salvage a public image when the court of law and public opinion both turn their backs? How do you craft a narrative of redemption when the damage is this widespread, this personal, this criminal? Some will argue he deserves another chance. Others will insist on cancellation. But what cannot be denied, what is etched into legal record and public memory, is that justice, however delayed, finally arrived. And yet there are deeper questions this case leaves behind. Why did it take this long? Why were settlement payments, NDA letters, and industry silence allowed to bury the truth for so many years? How many more exist like Diddy, shielded by wealth and enablers whose abuses haven't yet been exposed? The entertainment industry must reckon with itself. It must ask, what kind of culture have we built? One where success justifies silence, where money trumps morality, where the screams of the harmed are drowned out by applause. This partial verdict offers an answer. It offers a shift. For aspiring artists, for women trying to survive in male-dominated industries, for whistleblowers and journalists, for fans who once idolized without question. This moment is not just about Diddy.